The first thing Marcus noticed wasn't the girl. It was the car. A bright yellow Volkswagen Beetle sat on the shoulder of Highway 47 like a giant lemon drop, steam rising from under its hood in delicate white puffs. The second thing he noticed was the girl standing next to it, wearing a red-fitted skirt that showed off her long, gorgeous legs and looking about as out of place as a diamond earring in a toolbox. Marcus pulled his beat-up Ford pickup behind the Bug and killed the engine. Through his rearview mirror, he watched the girl eye his truck with the kind of expression usually reserved for roadkill. "Need some help?" he called out, grabbing his toolbox from the truck bed. The girl, she couldn't be more than 25, turned around and gave his pickup another skeptical look. "Is that thing even legal on public roads?" Marcus glanced back at his truck. Sure, it had more rust than paint, and the tailgate was held on with zip ties, but it ran like a dream. "She's got character. She looks like something from those horror movies where people get murdered on road trips," the girl said, but there was a hint of a smile tugging at her lips. "Maybe it is," Marcus said, grinning. "Maybe this is my origin story." The girl laughed despite herself. "Well, you don't look like the scary forest guy who smells weird and hasn't shaved since the Clinton administration." "Thanks for the compliment," Marcus said, popping the hood of her Bug. "And you definitely don't look like you're from around here." "What gave it away? The fact that I'm not wearing camouflage?" Marcus peered into the engine compartment, not trying to smile too widely. "That, and your car costs more than most people around here make in a year." "Hey, Bugs are classic. They're economical." "Lady, this thing's got more restoration work than the Sistine Chapel. This isn't economical. This is expensive nostalgia." She crossed her arms defensively. "His name is Sonny, and he's perfectly practical." "You named your car?" "You named your truck." "I called it She, not Sonny." Marcus located the problem, a loose radiator hose. "Hand me that wrench from my toolbox, would you?" As she rummaged through his tools, Marcus snuck glances at her. Everything about her screamed money, from her perfectly manicured nails to her designer boots that probably cost more than his rent. But she was handing him tools without complaint and making jokes about horror movies, which was more than he could say for most of the rich tourists who occasionally broke down in his town. "So what's a city girl driving a vintage Bug through rural nowhere?" Marcus asked, tightening the hose clamp. "I like road trips. They're freeing. In a car that breaks down every 50 miles? Sonny doesn't usually break down," she said defensively. "He just gets temperamental sometimes." "Like his owner?" She shot him a look that was half annoyed, half amused. "You don't know me well enough to make that assessment. Give me 5 more minutes with your car and I'll know everything I need to know about you." "Oh, really? What do you know so far, Dr. Freud?" Marcus wiped his hands on a rag and considered. "You're not from around here. Probably East Coast, maybe West. You've got money, but you're not flashy about it. You like things with character, even if they're impractical. And you're probably running away from something." The girl went quiet for a moment. "That's surprisingly accurate, except the running away part." "No? I prefer taking a strategic break from reality." I laughed. "That's just running away with better vocabulary." "Fine, maybe I'm running away a little." She paused. "What about you? What's a mechanic on Highway 47 at 3 in the afternoon?" "Coming back from a parts run. Saw a damsel in distress." "I am not a damsel in distress. I'm a woman experiencing temporary automotive challenges." "Right, my mistake." Marcus closed the hood. "Try starting it now." The Bug turned over immediately, purring like a contented cat. "You're a miracle worker," the girl said, genuinely impressed. "Just a mechanic who pays attention." Marcus started packing up his tools. "That'll hold you, but you should get the cooling system checked when you get where you're going." The girl pulled out a business card from her purse. It was cream-colored, expensive-looking, with just a name and phone number. Sophia Richmond. Call me if you're ever in the city, Sophia said. I owe you dinner, or at least coffee. Marcus looked at the card, then at her. Marcus Webb. And you don't owe me anything. I insist. It's the least I can do. She climbed into the bug, and Marcus noticed she drove stick shift like she'd been doing it her whole life. As she pulled away, he caught a glimpse of her in the rearview mirror, watching him in hers. It wasn't until she was gone that Marcus realized he'd been holding his breath. He looked down at the business card again. No company name, no title, just Sophia Richmond in elegant script. He tucked it into his wallet and climbed back into his truck, wondering if he'd ever see the yellow bug or its owner again. A week later, Marcus was sitting in Mel's Diner, the only decent coffee place within 20 miles of his garage, when a familiar flash of yellow caught his eye through the window. The Volkswagen Bug pulled into the parking lot like a cheerful yellow beacon, and out stepped Sophia Richmond, looking just as out of place in the small-town diner as she had on the highway. She spotted him through the window and waved, her face lighting up with genuine surprise and delight. "Well, if it isn't my knight in shining armor," Sophia said, sliding into the booth across from him. "Though I have to say, the armor looks suspiciously like a flannel shirt." "And if it isn't the runaway heiress," Marcus replied, grinning. "How's Sonny running?" "Like a dream, thanks to you. I actually came back this way hoping I might run into you." "You drove 50 miles out of your way on the off chance you'd see me?" Sophia's cheeks turned slightly pink. "Maybe. Or maybe I just really like small-town diners." Marcus looked around Mel's place. Vinyl booths held together with duct tape, a jukebox that only played country music from the 80s, and coffee that could strip paint. "Right, this place screams five-star dining experience." "Hey, it has character," Sophia protested. "Just like your truck." "My truck doesn't charge $4 for coffee that tastes like motor oil." "You say that like it's a bad thing. I happen to like motor oil flavor." Mel herself appeared at their table, a 60-year-old woman who looked like she could arm wrestle a bear and win. "What can I get you folks?" "Coffee, black," Sophia said confidently. Mel raised an eyebrow. "You sure, honey? City folks usually want cream and sugar and all kinds of fancy stuff." "I'm not your typical city folk," Sophia said with a smile. After Mel left, Marcus studied Sophia curiously. "So, what's your story, really?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, most people don't drive vintage cars through random small towns for fun. And that business card of yours, no company, no title. Either you're independently wealthy or you're in witness protection." Sophia nearly choked on her coffee. "Witness protection? Hey, I watch TV. People in witness protection always have mysterious business cards." "I'm not in witness protection," Sophia laughed, "though that would be more exciting than the truth." "Which is?" Sophia hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "I'm taking a break from my family's business. Sometimes you need space to figure out what you actually want to do with your life, you know?" "Family business, huh? What kind?" "Boring, corporate stuff. Lots of meetings, lots of people in suits telling other people what to do." Marcus nodded. "I get it. That's why I became a mechanic. Cars don't have board meetings. They just break down on highways instead." "Exactly. Much more straightforward." They talked for 2 hours, and Marcus found himself genuinely enjoying the conversation. Sophia was funny, self-deprecating, and surprisingly knowledgeable about cars. She told him about her cross-country road trip plans, and he told him about his garage and his dreams of maybe expanding someday. "You should do it," Sophia said, when he mentioned wanting to open a bigger shop. "You're obviously talented." "Talent doesn't pay for new equipment," Marcus said pragmatically. "Or rent, or food. Sometimes you have to take risks to get what you want." Easy to say when you have a safety net. Sophia went quiet at that, and Marcus wondered if he'd hit too close to home. "You're right," she said finally. "I don't know what it's like to worry about rent money, but I do know what it's like to feel stuck." There was something in her voice that made Marcus look at her more carefully. Behind the designer clothes and easy confidence, he caught a glimpse of something else. Loneliness, maybe? Or frustration? For what it's worth, Marcus said, I think anyone brave enough to drive a temperamental vintage car across the country isn't really stuck. You're just figuring out which direction to go. Sophia smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Thanks. That means more than you know. When they finally left the diner, the sun was setting, painting the sky the same shade of yellow as Sophia's car. I should probably head back, Sophia said reluctantly. Where's back? About 3 hours east of here. There's this little bed and breakfast I found. Marcus nodded, trying not to feel disappointed. Drive safe, and remember what I said about that cooling system. I will. Sophia hesitated at her car door. Marcus, thanks for this. The coffee, the conversation, everything. Anytime. As she drove away, Marcus stood in the parking lot watching her taillights disappear into the dusk. He had the strangest feeling that their story wasn't over yet. He just had no idea how right he was. 3 days later, Marcus was under the hood of a stubborn Chevy when he heard expensive cars pulling into his garage. Not one expensive car. Multiple expensive cars. He slid out from under the Chevy to see 3 black sedans parked in his lot like they were preparing for a presidential visit. 4 men in identical dark suits climbed out, looking like they'd stepped out of a corporate thriller movie. Marcus Webb, the lead suit, was tall, silver-haired, and had the kind of presence that suggested he was used to people saying, "Yes, sir," without question. "That's me," Marcus said, grabbing a rag to wipe his hands. "You gentlemen lost?" "Not lost. We're here on business." The man extended a manicured hand. "Richard Sterling, Sterling Industries. We have a proposition for you." Marcus had never heard of Sterling Industries, but the way the man said it suggested he should have. "What kind of proposition?" "We understand you're a talented mechanic with aspirations to expand your operation." Marcus frowned. He'd mentioned his expansion dreams to exactly one person recently. "Where did you hear that?" "We do our research, Mr. Webb. We're prepared to offer you a substantial investment to open a state-of-the-art automotive service center, full modernization, latest diagnostic equipment, expanded facility, everything you'd need to become the premier garage in a 50-mile radius." It was everything Marcus had dreamed of, offered on a silver platter by complete strangers, which immediately made him suspicious. "Why me? There are bigger garages, more established businesses." "Sometimes potential matters more than current size," Sterling said smoothly. "We believe you have the vision and skills to make this investment profitable for everyone involved." "And what's the catch?" "No catch. Just a standard business partnership agreement." Marcus looked at the contracts one of the other suits was pulling from a briefcase. The numbers on the papers made his head spin. More money than he'd see in 10 years of fixing cars. "I need to think about this," Marcus said slowly. "Of course. Take your time." Just as Sterling was climbing back into his sedan, Marcus heard a familiar sound, the distinctive purr of a vintage Volkswagen engine. The yellow bug pulled into his lot, and out stepped Sophia Richmond, looking as surprised to see the corporate delegation as Marcus felt. "Mr. Sterling?" Sophia said, walking over to the group. "What are you doing here?" Sterling's businesslike demeanor melted into something warmer. "Sophia, just handling some business for your father." The pieces clicked into place in Marcus's head with the subtlety of a falling piano. "Your father?" Sophia looked between Marcus and Sterling, her face cycling through several emotions before settling on resignation. "Marcus, meet Richard Sterling, my father's business manager. And yes, before you ask, my father is James Richmond." Even Marcus, who paid zero attention to business news, had heard of James Richmond. The man owned everything from shipping companies to real estate empires to, apparently, daughters who drove broken-down Volkswagens through small towns. "You're James Richmond's daughter," Marcus said flatly. "Guilty as charged." Sterling looked between them with interest. "You two know each other?" "He fixed my car last week," Sophia said quickly. "I mentioned he was talented." "Ah," Sterling nodded approvingly. "Well, this makes things even better. Sophia has an excellent eye for potential investments." Marcus felt like he was watching his life get rearranged by people in expensive suits. "So this whole thing, the offer, the investment, that's because you told your father about me?" "I told him you were a good mechanic who deserved a chance," Sophia said defensively. "The rest was his idea." "I don't need charity," Marcus said, his pride stinging. "It's not charity, it's business," Sterling interjected. "Your skills, our capital. Everyone wins." Marcus looked at the contracts, then at Sophia, then back at the contracts. Everything he'd wanted was right there, but it felt tainted somehow. "I said I need to think about it," Marcus repeated. Sterling nodded. "We'll be in touch." He and his suits climbed back into their sedans and drove away, leaving Marcus and Sophia alone in the garage. "You could have told me," Marcus said after a long silence. "When? When I was fixing your car? When we were having coffee? 'Hi, I'm Sophia. My father owns half the East Coast.'" "It might have come up in conversation." "And then what? You would have treated me differently. Everyone does." Marcus couldn't argue with that. He probably would have. "The offer's legitimate. My father doesn't throw money at people out of kindness. He thinks you're worth the investment. Because you told him to. Because you're good at what you do." Sophia stepped closer. "Marcus, this is your dream. Why are you hesitating?" "Because I don't know if I can trust it. Or you." Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then she walked over to his workbench and picked up a wrench. "You know what? You're right to be suspicious. Rich people don't usually offer life-changing opportunities to strangers. But here's the thing. I'm not just some rich girl playing games." "No? No." She turned back to him. "I'm a rich girl who's been looking for something real her entire life. And when I met you, fixing my car on a random highway, treating me like just another person instead of a walking dollar sign, that felt real." Marcus studied her face, looking for any sign of deception. "The business offer stands regardless," Sophia continued. "But I was hoping you might consider a different kind of partnership too." "What kind?" "Well, you need someone to handle the business side. Accounting, taxes, paperwork. I have an MBA I've never used, and a desperate need to do something meaningful with my life." "You want to be my business partner?" "I want to be whatever you let me be," Sophia said simply. "Business partner, bookkeeper, coffee getter, whatever. I just want to be part of something real." Marcus looked around his garage, his small, cluttered, barely profitable garage, and tried to imagine it transformed into something bigger, with Sophia beside him, keeping the books, arguing with him about business decisions, making terrible coffee in the break room. It wasn't the worst picture he had ever imagined. "You really think this could work?" he asked. "I think," Sophia said, stepping closer, "sometimes the best partnerships start with a breakdown on the side of the road." Marcus grinned. "That was terrible." "I know. I'm working on my mechanic humor." "Good thing you're pretty. And good with spreadsheets." "That too." Marcus looked at the contracts one more time, then at Sophia, really looked at her, past the designer clothes and the family name, at the woman who'd driven back to a small-town diner just to see him again. "All right," he said finally. "Let's build something together." Sophia's smile was brighter than her yellow bug's paint job. "Really?" "Really. But I have one condition." "Name it." "Sonny gets regular maintenance." No more breaking down on highways." "Deal," Sophia said, laughing, "though I have to admit that breakdown led to the best thing that's ever happened to me." Marcus reached for her hand. "Same here." 6 months later, Webb and Richmond Automotive was the most successful garage in 3 counties, and Marcus had learned that rich girls who knew how to balance books and weren't afraid to get their hands dirty were pretty much perfect business partners. And when Sophia's father visited the grand opening, he pulled Marcus aside and said, "Best investment I ever made wasn't the garage, son. It was trusting my daughter's judgment about you." Marcus looked across the crowded garage at Sophia, who was explaining engine diagnostics to a customer with the same enthusiasm she brought to everything else in her life. "Mine too," Marcus said.